That moment of realization that's so important. And I think a lot of comedians, as Justin may think is totally justified, would be like, fuck you. I'm sorry if this is funny. It's a good joke. I don't care if you're offended by it.
So I think the fuck you attitude's not right. So that's not what I'm saying. I disagree. I think for them to say
anything that's funny goes. You're saying anything that's funny goes.
Yeah, okay.
That's what you said, basically. And
funny,
I can't get on board with that. I can't get on board with that. Why is the joke more important than other people's feelings?
No, okay.
Like, comedians sometimes I feel like. We're gonna crack open the PC wheel and talk about it.
Oh, crack open that PC can.
Yeah. Oh, I knew you wanted.
I love it.
I knew you wanted this.
Just fucking get that little can opener going. And I wanna taste the PC. Just put it on my tongue.
Here's the perfect segue. Not even segue. Here's the perfect preface or intro into this topic. Okay.
Okay.
Prakash, have you watched Kevin Hart's newest stand-up special?
Is this
the one where he's in his living room? He has like a stage.
Zero fucks given, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, you enjoyed it, yeah?
I really did. Yeah.
I thought it was good.
I thought it was really intelligent, and I thought that he addressed certain things.
Okay.
That he's been wanting to address for a long time, and also that I think is really important for comedians and actors and anyone in the public limelight or the public eye to talk about. And so for anyone who's listening who hasn't seen Kevin Hart's his stand-up special, I'll just pick one specific moment that I think is a really good example, right? He talks about how he hadn't had a cheeseburger for a really long time, right? And then he was in a In-N-Out parking lot. He was just demolishing this cheeseburger, and then some lady comes up with a phone. She's like, "I got you." And then he talks about how he then had to apologize on Twitter to the vegan community because he'd just gone vegan. And then but his main point with that joke was that he doesn't like what the audience has done to him. And I thought that was so interesting. He doesn't like how he feels that the audience has changed him, and that he has then had to feel as though he's had to redirect his own innate humor or had to change it or just try to make it more palatable for people. And I guess it points to exactly what we're talking about, is that people get upset a lot these days, and people get in trouble for what they say publicly, even if it's for entertainment. There it is. I've taken the lid off the can.
I think this is why there's such genius behind Dave Chappelle, because Dave Chappelle has managed to maintain this massive audience, but he's not holding back. He hasn't changed who he is.
When you look at in the entertainment sphere, I would say everyone from different industries. It can be an actor or a singer or a comedian or a poet or leave poets aside, okay? So,
hey, fuck the poets, am I right?
Hey, a lot of people do, Justin. That's why they're poets.
Jeez, those no talent ass clowns and their poets and their feelings and their.
It's okay.
Yes,
they're still contributing to the society. Let's not talk about that. But what I mean is,
poems.
Like when you reach to a certain level of like authority in the entertainment scene, you do have a sense of like a belonging and like a sense of like pride in what you do. So, and that's why when someone says something, people are like, okay, I'm gonna still stick by it what these guys are saying. But like when someone is a bit more on the lower tier, try to be smart or like make sense. And then that's when the audience come to you. They're like, oh, who are you to say this? Like blah, blah, blah. And in true fact, maybe those people who are saying that were in the same position as the person who said it. And like, especially for a comedian, right? I think what a comedian says on stage are things that the public wants to say, but they don't have the balls to say it. My Twitter audience and my Facebook and Instagram audience are just three separate different worlds.
Really?
Like, yeah,
wait,
man,
how so? Explain that.
So Malaysian Twitter, it's insane. If you post something that is funny but like a bit more rhetorical and like satire towards like our government, so they literally take what we say as the truth. They think that we are actually
not that it's not satirical. You're not making a satirical joke about it.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh my god. I was listening to I can't remember, was it who was it? Was it Jerry Seinfeld or one of the comics? They were talking about tweeting and like what happens as comedians when you tweet, because a lot of comedians usually they tweet something because like, oh, okay, I have this idea. I'm just going to put it out there so that next time in the future, if another comic does, hey, I've actually tweeted that, so that's actually my bit. You know, it's kind of like, you know, you kind of like reserve that, right? But like people take comedians so seriously on Twitter because, and that's the thing. It's come to a point where people don't know how to differentiate between a joke and a statement anymore.
People will believe anything on Twitter now. Like people can't even decide between like literal.
It's also because I think you have certain people that generally just want to get angry at something. Like that's how they're filling some kind of void. So they start lashing out anything.
No, and that's the problem, I guess. You see, as a comedian, everything a comedian does or anything in the sphere of comedy, it has to be critical. If it's not critical, it's not going to be funny. You know, you can't just go up there and make jokes about like vegans, but you don't know why vegans are funny. You know what I mean?
Okay,
like,
so then,
like you can't.
Question, Prakash.
Yeah, you have to offend to have a conversation. You have to offend.
Okay, no, you don't. That's
a little bit.
Statement.
You do.
No, you don't.
If you're gonna have a conversation with others that people that no. Okay, listen to me for a second. You're trying to. Alan's getting PC. He's the Twitter people.
I'm not even on Twitter. I'm on Twitter. I don't tweet.
So no. Okay.
Explain yourself in better context.
Let me explain. Okay.
Yeah.
Context just
to have a conversation with people that disagree with you. So if you're having a conversation with people that disagree with you, everybody must be prepared to offend and to be offended because you're making points for your argument that goes against what they believe, right? Because you disagree. So therefore, at some point, people are going to be offended.
No, it's not necessary. It's about the person and the position that you approach it with. And if that other person holds that value so deeply that they're going to get mad about it, possibly they won't. Yeah. There's a way to have disagreements amicably. You don't have to offend people. You can be willing to offend people. You have to be willing to be found offensive.
But I think you have to be willing to get offended. It's okay. It's okay to offend, and it's okay to be offended. This is how proper discourse occurs when you have polar opposites. Because there's no other way.
No, but you can't just say that blanketly. You can't just say like.
No, I kind of know where Justin is coming from. Okay, I get what you're saying because in a nutshell, I mean maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think when you say that you must be prepared to be offended and you must offend someone in order to get a message through, it can be also said like you need to be ready to get criticism. You need to be ready to be criticized. So that is a better way of putting it. But the problem, the problem that we see nowadays is like people are getting offended for there's no basis for them to become being offended. I give you a very simple example. I have a particular joke where before I do the joke, I'll look out for couples in the audience. There was this Indian couple. So I asked the guy like, "Hello, sir, what's your name?" And the guy replied his name. I said, "Oh, okay, hi. And is this your wife?" And he said like, "Yeah, this is my wife." Then I asked like, "Oh, ma'am, what's your name?" And then she said her name. And then I looked at the guy like, "So how long you guys been married for?" And then the guy said like, "Oh, I've been married for 35 years." And then like I look at the wife and I say like, "Is that true?" Because usually the ladies always remember the dates. And then she's like, yes. And then everyone clapped in. And I say, "Hey guys, 35 years, give them a round of applause." And then I looked at the guy and I asked like, "Sir, I want to ask you something. Do you remember when the first time you met your wife, the song that was playing in your head?" And then he said like, "No, I don't remember. But tell you what, my parents have been married for 38 years. And I asked my dad, like, what was the song that was playing in his head? And he said, like, it must have been love, but it's over now. All right. So that's the progress of the joke. All right. Yeah. Show ends, and me being me after the show, I'll be going around thanking people. Hey, thanks for coming to the show, blah, blah, blah. There was this girl and this guy. And they come to the comedy clubs quite often. I've seen them before. She came up to me. She's like, "Hey, by the way, I want to let you know, it's very offensive that you didn't ask the wife what was the song that was playing in her head." And I'm like, what?
That's ridiculous. That's another level. That's just looking for something.
Yeah, and then she literally called me a misogynist.
Jesus Christ.
And I'm like I said, like, you were there at the show. You saw what happened. You know the structure of the joke. Mm. And I did not it's like, "Oh no, but you should have asked the wife. Why did you ask the man only?"
Because that's not like, the joke. The joke is
and that's when I realized, guys, like people get offended for the stupidest shit, man.
Yeah. Which is why I think if everybody's getting offended or scared to offend, well, for stand-up comedy, how do you even do it?
No, that's the thing.
You can't happen. So you've got to. You just do
it.
You just got to fucking do it. You just got to squash it. You have to not worry about offending people.
Because that's the thing.
And I think that same thing goes when it's coming to just a lot of discourse as well. I think people need to freaking just saddle up, fucking, take your big boy pills, and everybody can just not worry about getting offended or offending each other.
Okay, you're so wrong. No,
why?
Yeah, you just are. So here's the deal. I agree that the fear of offending an audience is death for a comedian. 100%, right?
Yeah.
And I have this kind of dualistic kind of feeling about the idea of cancel culture. On the one hand, I don't like that a lot of the most amazing comedians have not been able to continue their career successfully because of something that they may have said that a community is offended by.
Yeah.
So that maybe that was said decades ago.
Yeah, that's right.
When the political culture was of a different time and maybe there wasn't as much awareness about certain things, that can be really messed up. But at the same time, that term cancel culture is also being used by an entire different group of people who are saying, you can't take me off the air just because I raped a woman. That's cancel culture, right? So we also have to make sure that we know where that's going. But my thing is that you don't have to offend people.
Yeah.
My question is, where's the line, right? Because from what Justin is saying,
I think you're taking the word offend in a different context than I am.
Not too many ways to take it. Go ahead.
Not
many ways to take it.
Okay. Justin, I want to know, because I am in the same boat with Alan here. Because I do agree with what Alan says, because for me, as much as I want to push the bound, because I do talk a lot about because as a brown person in this country, I know what happens to my people.
Right.
And I sometimes I really push in the audience, and sometimes they will laugh, and then the laugh just turns ooh, because you see, they know what's happening. They want to laugh about it. They know it's funny. But then
it's bad.
When it hits the spot, and then they're like, oh shit, you can't talk about that. Whatever I talk on stage, I'm very responsible with what I say on stage. And I backed it up with facts. If I'm saying something about this Indian boy got convicted because blah 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 blah, it was because it was in the papers or something. And I say why don't you see any other races being mentioned if this boy is he commits a crime? Why is it if it just is the Indian boy, his name, his age, where is he from, is all revealed? Yeah. And I'm so I kind of go that angle. Can you try to explain what you mean by you have to offend?
I get what Alan's saying. Alan's saying you don't want to purposely offend people and thus making them feel isolated, therefore polarizing society more.
I'm saying it's not necessary for it to be funny. I'm saying a lot of go ahead, because I think a lot of people say offensive things just for the shock value.
Oh no, okay, so that's not what I'm talking about.
And also, but that's also happening within this exact same context of stand-up comedians saying offensive things. Yeah. You can't separate between the comedians who are saying. So actually, this brought up the great point I was going to bring up. Does it matter if a comedian's good or bad when he says offensive things? Because there's a problem. What if a comedian's terrible and says a really offensive thing that is just not even tastefully done, it's not tactful, and it's horrible? And then you're like, you know what? No, you can't talk about transsexual people that way. But then maybe a Kevin Hart makes a really witty and a really just well-crafted, punchline-driven and story-driven joke about the same topic. It's hard to tell, right? Part of me thinks that it should matter.
I think the quality of the joke matters. I mean, because
but that shouldn't be the case, though. You can't be you can be offensive because what you said is actually artfully done. You can't be offensive because what you're saying is shit.
I think
it's all subjective. No, you can't, man. That's not fair.
Okay, so Dave Chappelle talks about the transsexual community a lot, and a lot of them feel very offended. A lot of them seem to. I think a lot of them get offended. What are you saying? But I mean, he gets away with it more because he does it in a bit more of a smart way, because he's a very talented comedian. Whereas if you were to have another person that was a bad comedian and did it in a bad joke, that becomes more offensive, because there's a good comedian can use nuance and language and a tone of voice and they can use another joke that follows it to offer more of context about where they're coming from. Whereas a non-experienced comedian might just say that joke. He can basically deliver the exact lines of Dave Chappelle in that joke in isolation, and it's all wrong. But Dave Chappelle can do it.
Okay, so
it's a dangerous line, Justin. That's a dangerous line to walk.
See, I don't think we should be. I don't think there's any topic that's taboo for a good comedian to make a joke on. Can it go wrong? Yes, it can go wrong. Obviously, it can go wrong. But if it goes well and it's good,
yes,
good joke.
So it comes to this. For me, like I said, Alan, you asked me where do you draw the line? All right.
Yeah, there has to be a line, right? But Justin's saying there's no line, and Justin's wrong about that.
That's your opinion, Alan. See,
I know it. No, it's just fact.
Yeah. No. For me, okay, you can actually joke about like whatever you want to joke about, but firstly, you need to have the sense of responsibility. That means
I like that a lot.
What I'm trying to say is in this current culture, in this current climate of like all this like top like PC culture, cancel culture, whatever not, you need to know that if the joke that you made, all right, is good and you have repercussions after that, you need to be responsible of what you're going to do. If the joke died and was bad, you need to be responsible and know how to do. When someone fucks up things, you know you have fucked up. All right, and you can't back it up, right? And that's when a lot of comedians get into trouble because they don't admit their mistakes. All right, they never admit their mistakes because they go up there like, oh, I just said that because I want to say it, like, but like you didn't know why you said it. Like there must be a reason because like I mean a very good yardstick I would say is Anthony Jeselnik. Have you watched his stuff?
Oh yeah, I actually think he's very offensive. I think he's amazing too.
Yeah,
like,
so.
There you go. But like, he doesn't worry about any line. He just tells
king of one-liners jokes. Too. Yeah.
No,
but the principles of his jokes are just so well done.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, I think so. I was listening to him on one of the podcasts, and he mentioned this very clearly. It's like I am solely because like he made a joke, like the week after the Boston bombing, on a talk show.
I remember him talking about this. Yeah.
And I'm like, but you know what? As a comedian, that is such a good joke. So I am drawing parallels from a comedian to a photographer right now. Okay, you know the famous photo of this African kid, and then there's a vulture standing at the back that won the Pulitzer.
I'm not sure.
So it's a very famous photographed by this South African photojournalist. I can't remember his name, but if you go online, you can just search like there's a very famous photo where it's a kid on the desert floor, and then there was a vulture just hanging out at the back, ready to like eat it. So he took the photo, he shot the photo. He had the opportunity to go and help the kid, but he didn't because in his head it's like, oh my God, I need to get the photo as a photographer. So you see, the career comes first. So a comedian, when he does the joke, is like, I want to make people laugh first. They don't understand what's going to happen later. So this guy, he had, and it's not just him, a lot of famous photographers that are amazing war photojournalists, blah, blah, blah. They are there. They have seen all these things. Maybe some of them had the opportunity to save someone, but their ethics have gone to a point where like, no, this is just my work. And then, so this guy who won the Pulitzer Prize, he actually committed suicide after he winning. If it doesn't get you now, it's going to come back to you sometime later.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Let's say I come back to the topic of responsibility because you really have to know, like, where is your direction going to be? Because you can joke about anything. You can go out and can be smart and deliver your points. But like, if you don't take ownership to what you're going to do, and that's where the trouble is. Yeah. That's when and that's when, like Alan, that's when new groups of people will start coming like, hey, so there's going to be another subculture of cancel culture. There's going to be,
for sure.
It's going to be, added and added and added, and it comes to a point where like, oh my God, there's nothing to joke anymore, know? And then those comedians who are like really successful, they're going to struggle. They're like, hey, what's happening, man? Like, it used to be like this, blah, blah, blah. Because like in America right now, I don't know if you heard, a lot of big comedians, they don't want to perform in the universities anymore because back in the day they would do the uni gigs, Now, because even universities actually have a special body that only selects like comedians that fit their
ideals.
Ideals, maybe
which is
this
not
comedian.
good. This is dangerous. This is a dangerous thing.
Dangerous. Yeah, I get that. So I think a lot of comedians have also done a lot of damage to themselves because they don't take ownership to what they've done. And like, I totally agree where Alan is coming from, because it comes to a point where even as the world progresses, we have to update our knowledge on things, and if you don't, then you're going to be stuck in a circle. The good way is to actually like know what's happening in the current climate, and then you go for it, rather than like still having the old ideals and you want to joke about it and it's not funny, then you might get in trouble, I would say.
You have to be aware and knowledgeable.
Yes.
I think in order to make those jokes.
Yes.
And I think the comedians that are successful in doing this are the ones that are highly intelligent, and they probably like ask other people, hey, what do we think of this? So they're probably really being careful, Like
the other day I was watching Bill Burr's monologue on SNL.
Oh yeah, I watched it. It was actually very good.
It's so good, but if you notice, the audience were afraid to laugh.
There were parts though it was pretty intense and offensive, but I thought was pretty hilarious.
So good. I think it's written so well, and
the way he talked to white women was
it's so great.
But of course, if you're a white woman, you'd probably be offended by it.
A little offended.
That's the thing.
That's okay, because he's a comedian. That's my point.
See, and I have a completely different point. So I think I just need to I just want to make sure I point out that this is not an easy topic for me. Like, I'm not in one camp firmly on either side, right? I am playing a bit more of a devil's advocate just because it's fun, especially with Justin, because I know that we tend to lean differently, but we're probably closer in the middle on this than we like to admit. Having a joke and needing to be responsible for that joke. I think that's such a cool idea. And I think it's actually really important. And part of, like you said, where a lot of comedians have gone wrong, where they said a joke and then some people took it offensively. I feel like that's the moment that I'm having problems with, is that moment when a comedian finds out that what they've said has been offensive. Yes. To me, that moment of reaction is so important. Or that moment of realization is so important. And I think a lot of comedians, as Justin may think is totally justified, would be like, fuck you. I'm sorry if this is funny. It's a good joke. I don't care if you're offended by it.
So I think the fuck you attitude is not right. So that's not what I'm saying. I disagree. I think for them to say
anything that's funny goes. You're saying anything that's funny goes.
Yeah, okay.
That's what you said, basically. And I can't get on board with that. I can't get on board with that. Why is the joke more important than other people's feelings? Sometimes I feel like comedians get so precious about their material, but the material's just meant to be consumed. Like, and so, but if it's whatever funny, that audience reacts, however that audience reacts is the proper response. It doesn't matter whether you agree with it or whether you feel it. It was meant for an audience's response. So for a comedian to say something and then find out that's offensive and then tell them that they don't have no right to be offended by it, is it totally inappropriate?
Okay, I see. That's not what I said. You're not listening.
I'm
not saying. I'm not saying that a comedian should be like, fuck you, or say, you have no right to be offended. I'm saying it's okay to offend, and it's okay to be offended. Not all the time. You shouldn't necessarily be doing it on purpose just for show.
So there needs to be a line. You said there's no line. There has to be a line, Justin.
I think if it's a good joke, I think you can make a good joke about anything.
Why is a good joke more important? But if it's a good joke, it's not going to offend
the masses.
That's not true, Justin. No.
I don't do that.
Maybe Prakash.
So here's the thing. So here's a good point. If it's going to offend the masses, then you fucked up and it's a bad joke. Now, if it's really offensive to maybe a few people, but it's just an offensive subject matter, but most people are like, that was offensive, but that was a really good joke, and they're still going to laugh at it, that's a good joke.
This is something I've realized doing shows in the last 8 years. It's always like the minority, like a small group of people who get fucking offended. And when you dig deeper, like especially this girl that, remember I told you about the whole calling me misogynist? So I got to know her. Then she said like, but like, speaking from my experience, I say like, look, I maybe you had a bad experience with someone else, but that does not reflect who I am.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. Justin and I literally sustain ourselves on likes and subscribe clicks. We're not gonna make it through pandemic if you don't like or subscribe.
We need those tasty likes and subscribes.